Some heroes are remembered for what they conquered. Others are remembered for what they refused to abandon. This is a true story from World War II. A story about an American officer who was given a clear order and chose instead to stay with his men. Not because he was reckless, but because he believed that leadership meant responsibility, even when survival was no longer guaranteed. In January of 1945, deep in the frozen forests of Belgium, American soldiers from the 106th Infantry Division found themselves surrounded, cut off, outnumbered, low on food, ammunition, and hope. The Battle of the Bulge had become one of the coldest and most brutal moments of the war. Among those soldiers was their commanding officer. He had every reason to leave. Higher command offered him a chance to escape, to save himself, to return and continue fighting another day. But that would have meant leaving his men behind, injured, exhausted, and trapped. He refused, not with anger, not with defiance, but with quiet certainty. He told his superiors that if his men could not be evacuated, neither would he. That decision would seal his fate. For days, the unit held their position under relentless pressure. Snow covered the wounded. Frostbite claimed fingers and toes. Medical supplies were almost gone. Yet morale did not collapse, because their officer stayed. He walked among them, shared their food, spoke calmly, even as artillery echoed through the trees. He reminded them that they were not forgotten, that they were Americans, and that surrender would not come easily. Eventually, with no options left, the order came. They were forced to surrender. As prisoners of war, the men endured brutal conditions, forced marches, hunger, cold. Many would not survive captivity. Their officer did not receive special treatment. He did not identify himself as a commander. He carried the same weight, endured the same suffering, and in doing so he preserved something far more important than rank. He preserved dignity. After the war, survivors spoke quietly about him, about how his decision gave them strength when everything else was gone. He never called himself a hero. In fact, he rarely spoke about the war at all. Years later, his actions were formally recognized, not because he disobeyed orders, but because he embodied the highest meaning of leadership. He did not measure success by victory alone, but by loyalty, by responsibility, by staying when leaving would have been easier. This is not a story about glory. It is a story about character, about an American who understood that leadership does not end when hope fades. It begins there. This is real America. These are America's quiet heroes.